Sometimes on social media, on book recommendation subreddits and that sort of thing, people will ask, where is this generation's Harry Potter? Where is this generation's Stephen King? Like, they're asking for why aren't we seeing these big mega name authors? And one might even ask the same for the film industry. I think we're seeing the same phenomenon there. Since the book industry is my wheelhouse, I'm going to talk about that. So people might rightfully point out that there are very big name authors that are just killing it out there. Sarah J. Maas, Brandon Sanderson. These are kind of today's generation of sci-fi fantasy authors that are, if they're not household names, they're just about household names. But I do think it's true that they are not quite at the same level of global mass media popularity that we saw in the 1990s and early 2000s. I think that the shared media landscape has changed dramatically since then, and people are no longer having quite the same amount of shared culture. So audiences have become niched into silos. And even though Brandon Sanderson does have at least $50 million worth of rabid fans that are willing to fund his latest Kickstarter or whatnot, there's an entire reading public, kind of older generation, people that are not US citizens, that are not in the fantasy subgenre, that have never heard of him. We don't see Brandon Sanderson making cameo appearances on major TV series or major movies. Like, that just isn't a thing that happens these days. Whereas many of us might remember that Stephen King did do that sort of thing. Going back to the Harry Potter example, there were major book launch parties. People would camp outside the bookstore for opening weekend, entire families, and it was sort of like a shared phenomena all over the world at the time. And we don't see that for any authors today. I think people are asking why that has shifted, and the obvious answer is the internet silos instead of global fandoms. But I would argue that there are a couple more reasons as well. One reason I think is big media is no longer taking the extreme risks that they took in the 1990s and early 2000s, and the 1980s for that matter. They are not willing to put all of their resources or a large percentage of their resources towards a risk, an unknown or a new series or something that hasn't been proven, that doesn't have a major IP attached to it. But for that reason, I think we are seeing a watering down of creative culture. And as an artist and creator, I don't like that. It saddens me. I think it saddens a lot of creators. And in that same vein, the major publishers used to sort of pump up authors to this mega celebrity status. Something like 60% of all the bestsellers during the 1990s belonged to like the same 10 authors, something like that, like Tom Clancy, Stephen King, Sue Grafton, Nora Roberts. Like, there were certain names that were just always kind of cresting the bestseller list. And a lot of that was because these major publishers had been consolidated to 6 of them at the time. Now there's 5, or 4 actually at this point. And they just poured all of their effort and resources into pumping up a particular author that was already selling very well to turn it into a train that couldn't be stopped, a momentum train. And finally, another reason, which I actually have another video that I covered the male reading crisis, but in a larger sense, studies show that fewer people are reading for pleasure or reading fiction. Of course, people are reading more than ever, Reddit, the internet, news, and so forth. But are they reading fiction for pleasure as much? I would argue that I'm not seeing that so much as I used to. Part of it is socioeconomic worries, I think, weighing on people's minds. The other part, I believe, is the very fact that publishers and big media are taking fewer risks and putting fewer resources into controversial type topics. There's fewer breakout successes and fewer reasons to read. I'm somebody who reads for pleasure, and I like to read original stuff, and I read a lot. So I don't want derivative stuff. I do not like retellings, rehashes, the same content again and again. If I feel like I've seen it before, I do get bored, and I don't like that. And to me, a lot of what is sold in mainstream venues, like the top shelves in libraries, like not just the top shelves, like all of the shelves in libraries, and a lot of the top shelves for debut authors in bookstores, I feel like a lot of it is like the same story, but with the window dressing swapped out. I am reading for more controversial things or deeper takes, stories that I find truly original, or like digging into maybe the current cultural moment that we're in and dissecting current events in a way that, like, through the lens of sci-fi and fantasy. Well, that's what I want to see. And I'm not seeing those kind of stories because they are risky. They are being tackled by indie authors like myself to some degree, but indie authors lack visibility for many, many reasons. And so even if I find a great one, it's not always on the public's radar. It's not usually a mainstream epic that I can go to a specific subreddit just for Game of Thrones or whatever and discuss the story. It'll be too niche. So in summary, yes, original stories are still being told. Yes, there are fresh takes, but I believe they are buried. They are not being fronted or centered by media and retailers and so forth for socioeconomic reasons. And readers are a little less interested in digging, and you do have to dig, that's the thing. My channel will continue to cover the cutting-edge underground of indie sci-fi and fantasy, and I will talk about the authors I admire, which I already have a number of booktube videos out there where I kind of rave about some of my favorites, and I will continue to do that. But I think it's good to acknowledge that the paradigm has shifted, the world has changed, and those big, giant, mega household brand name best-selling authors of the 1990s and early 2000s, I mean, J.K. Rowling was arguably the last of that cohort of like extreme mega celebrity authors where everyone in the world knew who this person was. I don't know if we'll be getting another author who gets their own theme park anytime soon. One of the biggest breakout successes of recent years is Matt Dinniman, and that's been fun to watch because he is kind of in my cohort of indie authors that are doing stuff underground. He broke into the mainstream. Don't know if he's going to become any kind of like mega celebrity for the ages, but it's nice to see that, hey, an indie author can actually break out into the mainstream against all the odds. Every once in a great while, it still happens even now. If you love to discuss cutting-edge indie authors who are doing something new, something innovative and exciting that you really haven't seen before and that you think is genuinely cutting edge, I would absolutely love to hear about it. Please let me know. You can always join my Discord or email me or so forth. I'm always on the lookout for new, exciting fiction by new, exciting authors.